Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 7-game Major League Baseball slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? We do have some weather concerns in the Boston and the New York Mets games. Do keep an eye out for those, but they should play likely. I don't think they're going to be delayed, but they might be delayed though, so do keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and get into our pitchers here. So Peapot for the Dodgers. In 4 games, he's averaging 19 fantasy points per game. He's not been below 16 fantasy points in that stretch. He's worth a look, but he's priced up some, and so he's a viable option here as he's pitched very well in his 4 games, and I think he's got good upside, and he's only given up 2 earned runs in that stretch. Then we'll look at Hunter Brown for the Houston Astros. Now he's got a good matchup here against a bad team against Oakland. He is capped around 18 to 22 fantasy points, though he will likely be a 15 fantasy point play here. I think he's high risk, high reward, but he is capable of big game in certain situations, and this is one of them. Then we'll look at Clevenger for the White Sox. He's managed to his matchup gives him some upside, and his K rate though has been very inconsistent. He is capable of a big game here, and he has 2 games over 30 fantasy points in the past 4. The problem is his other 2 games were below 5 fantasy points, and they weren't against good teams either. So he's been very inconsistent throughout the season, but he definitely draws some potential here and has some capability. And then we'll look at Schmidt for the Yankees. He is facing Boston. Boston has been inconsistent. He has scored 20 fantasy points versus them the last time he faced them, and he's had 3 games in the last 4 over 19 fantasy points as well, which gives him some upside here. I do like a few Boston bats though, especially Casas, but he's capable of a good game here. He's averaging 15 fantasy points a game against Boston on the season. And then I have an extreme Hail Mary play in Miguel for the Brewers. Now, he will likely draw the start today and only play 1 or 2 innings, but he won't pitch, past 2 innings at the very most. He has some strikeout upside here, and he's managed to not give up but 1 earned run in his last 10 games he's played. He could score 6 to 12 fantasy points and get a few strikeouts, and you can pay up for some other bats if you were to utilize him in that role. With the pitchers being somewhat suspect today, it is a potential risk reward situation that you could do that. As you can see, he really hasn't had any negative games in a while, so that's also an advantage. He's had 1, I think, in the last, or he's had just 2 negative fantasy point games all season long, though he never really pitches more than 1 or 2 innings. So do keep that in mind. So he's high risk, high reward. Hail Mary play, I mean, out the wazoo. So let's go ahead and get into our catchers here. So we'll start with Milwaukee's Contreras. He's hit the ball pretty solidly lately. He's also averaging 9 fantasy points a game. He's had a bunch of multi-hit games. He has home run potential today, even though he hasn't hit a bunch lately. He is capable of a good game here, and so he's a viable option. Then Mitch Garver is a great option. He's hit the ball very well with a 367 average over the last 10 games. He's got lots of multi-hit potential. He's hitting the ball pretty solidly. He has home run upside as well, and he has, the potential to score big fantasy points in this one, and he's got a great matchup to boot. And then Jonah Heim is kind of a contrarian option off of Garver. He's a little bit more inconsistent than Garver. He hasn't hit the ball quite as well, but he's been good against Toronto this season, though he has high risk, high reward. He does need a home run to pay off, but he's capable of that in this particular situation. Moving to first base, we'll look at Casas, who is a core play for me for Boston. Now, he's been pretty solid lately with 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He's also averaging over 10 fantasy points a game through that stretch. Gives him some nice upside. He has multi-hit potential, and he doesn't necessarily need to hit a home run to pay off, but it definitely will give him a benefit, and he is capable. He has very good metrics for a home run today, and so I like his upside on the slate. Freddie Freeman is also in play for the Dodgers, as he is very expensive, but he is hitting the ball very well, averaging just as much fantasy points as anybody on the slate, and he has really good upside here. He also hit a home run yesterday, so I think he's capable of another one today. He's been hitting good fantasy point numbers regardless of the home runs, and so he's very capable of a huge game here. Then we'll look at second base here, and we'll start with Mookie Betts. Also for the Dodgers. He draws really good metrics for this game. He hasn't been hitting quite as well over the last 10 games, but he still draws that home run upside and has multi-hit potential, and he's scoring lots of fantasy points. He's getting walked more, which is definitely giving him some potential for other things, but he is capable of a big game, and so I like him here, though he is high risk, high reward. Jose Altuve also in play for Houston. Now he's was in a little bit of a slump, but it looks like he's out of it. He's starting to hit the ball very consistent. The only real risk here is that he's had a lot of 5 fantasy point games recently, but he's capable of big games, and if he can get a home run, that'll definitely pay off. He's also got stolen base potential as well. And then Ahmad Rosario, uh, is in play for the Dodgers as he's been pretty inconsistent throughout the season, but he has been solid through the with the Dodgers, and I do like his upside in this matchup. His fantasy points per game has been up and down because he doesn't start every game, but he's capable when he does start to having a multi-hit game. Then we'll look at third base here. We'll look at Devers for Boston. Now, Devers is hitting the ball pretty well right now. He's not hitting as many home runs, but he's still scoring fantasy points in lots of different ways. He's got multi-hit potential, and that's sort of kind of situations I like to see utilize him. Obviously, we do want to him to hit a home run, though. Machado has hit the ball very well recently with a 310 average, almost averaging 10 fantasy points a game. He's had 3 home runs the last 10 as well, but he doesn't need a home run to pay off at this price, but he is capable of it here, and he's got really good matchup metrics. I was really close to putting Willie Adames in as a core play as he's hit the ball somewhat inconsistently, but he's getting a lot of walks and he's getting a lot of RBIs despite not getting a ton of hits. He is capable of a big game, and he's hitting in the last 5 or 6 games. He's really scored fantasy points in bunches, so he's definitely capable. And like I said, he doesn't need a home run. He's had a couple of triples in this stretch as well. Then we'll look at outfielders, and we'll look at Alvarez. Let's see, for the Houston Astros. He's been hitting the ball very well. He's a very good play on the slate. He's hitting over 12 fantasy points a game almost in the last 10, and he's got really nice metrics for this game. He has home run potential and multi-hit potential, though he does need a home run at the price point. Tatis Jr. is in play for San Diego. I do like Peapot a little bit, but he is a guy that's hit some home runs recently. He hit a home run yesterday too, but he's been somewhat inconsistent. So he's either getting over 10, over 20, or over 15, sorry, fantasy points, or under 5. So you do have to keep an eye on that because he does have a lot of O's, O for 4 games and stuff like that. So, but he is capable of a good game here. Kyle Tucker has been inconsistent recently, but he does draw good home run metrics and has some stolen base upside. He has big time potential, and as Houston typically does, Houston's a very stackable team today, and he's one of the guys I really do like a lot. Yoshida for Boston also in play. He's been somewhat streaky throughout the season, and he hasn't been particularly great in the last 10 games. But he is capable of good games, and he's been solid against the Yankees this season. In the last couple games, he's actually been the last, actually 2 games ago, he had a multi-hit game, so I think he's capable of another big game here, and he does draw some home run upside as well. Michael Brantley is a core play for me today as he's hit the ball very well so far in his 9 games. He's averaging 310 batting average and 7.5 fantasy points a game, and he's still just $4,200. He's a great option on this slate until as before his price starts to rise, which I think it will. Verdugo also in play. Now he's been inconsistent recently, but he's drawing some good upside in this matchup metric. And sorry, in this matchup, his metrics for a home run are also decent today, and he does draw some good potential for that. I do think he's got multi-hit potential as well. And then Robbie Grossman for the Texas Rangers is a kind of a cheap play who's hitting the ball very well recently. He's averaging 7 fantasy points a game over the last 10, and he's got some home run upside. He's not a huge home run threat, but sometimes he does align for some good home run metrics, and this is one of those days. He's kind of a Hail Mary play. With that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.